Hey everyone, welcome to the Healthy Brain Podcast. So, today is part one of a three-part series that I decided to do to share because I really want to provide in the next three episodes some real important information in how to build a stronger brain. This is such an important part of our health is our brain. And I know a lot of us, we may focus more on our physical health, but it all comes down to our brain health. And in today's episode, today is part one, next week part two, and the following week part three. So in the three-part series, what I'm really going to be going over today is what actually makes a strong brain, what influences the brain, and what's an overview of the building blocks to build a stronger brain. And that really is what the title of the series is how to build a stronger brain. Part one. So for part one, we'll be talking about what makes a stronger brain. And this is my definition slash years of over 25 years working in brain rehabilitation. I have seen hundreds of brains, worked with hundreds of people, over hundreds of people, patients, clients, working on their brain. And for whatever reason, they needed to see me. It was either post stroke, TBI, mild cognitive impairment, which is early dementia, early stages of dementia, or just having just some brain fog and needing to have some more clarity. So I've really seen many, many different types of people with different brains, and I have seen, but I've also studied a lot. Of course, I have a master's in speech language pathology. I'm a certified health and life coach and a yoga instructor. So, what do we know about what makes a strong brain? Well, there's quite a few ways that we can look at what makes a brain strong. We can look at cognitive flexibility, cognitive reserve, cognitive resilience. So those three, I've sort of bundled them in. They're not the same, but it's sort of a way to explain. So cognitive flexibility is being able to think mentally, have the flexibility of thinking of different situations, accessing the brain, different, its connectivity, the brain being able to access the left hemisphere for word finding, the right hemisphere for more abstract and creativity, the prefrontal cortex, which is for our planning, organizing, the learning and memory, which is more in the hippocampus. So cognitive flexibility is I'm able to determine when I do talk to people, patients, clients, and they're getting stuck in coming up with either an answer or a different solution. Having this flexibility, it really is an important and a good indicator of does someone have a strong brain? Cognitive reserve is where when things happen that are challenging in our lives, that are stressful, when we have a good cognitive reserve, we are pulling that energy from the cognitive reserve in order to deal with a stressful situation, some kind of crisis in life. We want to have a good cognitive reserve, a bank. I always call it, it's like a bank account. You want to have a robust bank account, a cognitive reserve, in order to tap into it. And there's different ways that we build up this cognitive reserve. On the flip side, there's cognitive resilience. Resilience is like grit, physical grit. I think there's a book called Grit, the Angela something. You probably know the book I'm talking about. with cognitive resilience, we're looking at how, and it's almost like endurance. How much can you focus? How much can you maintain attention? How much can you withstand the stress without crumbling, without setting you off the edge, spiraling into more negativity, and not being able to really stay with the a program, stay with something. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have the cognitive resilience of a Navy SEAL or Special Forces, not at all like that. There's different levels that people will need, and so that's just an idea of what makes up a stronger brain, those three principles. But I do want to get into some other principles of what can make a strong brain. So I mentioned connectivity versus protection mode. So a strong brain is able to work with quickness, connectivity, accessing different parts of the brain. When our brain is in protective mode, it means it's fighting something, either that stressful situation, that crisis, it's sort of in a lockdown protective mode, and we don't have as much connectivity. So a strong brain has this brain connectivity. A strong brain is balanced and calm. It is able to, again, withstand, have that resilience. A strong brain shows neuroplasticity, that it's growing, and it's all our brain is growing and shrinking. It's sort of this flowy state, and if we don't use our brain in certain areas of our brain, the neurons may not be firing as strong as they would if we were using that part of our brain. So with neuroplasticity, it's a concept of it's almost like a rewiring in some cases, or making certain areas work stronger in the brain. Neurogenesis is another principle of a strong brain. We used to think that nerve cells or brain cells would not, neurons would not grow past a certain age. But what they found, researchers have found, that there is neurogenesis that happens. There's a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, for example, when we exercise, when we have aerobic exercise, increasing the heart rate, getting the blood flow to the brain, that releases BDNF, and that in turn promotes neurogenesis, which is the growth of new neurons. Bigger brain, meaning better, bigger is better in most cases with a brain, um, in that it's fluffy, it's healthy, it is growing with challenges that we experience with using our brain in different ways. So that is what really makes a strong brain. Now, when I ask people or we talk about their brain health, there's usually one or two areas or many areas where when I explain this, cognitive flexibility, cognitive reserve, cognitive resilience, connectivity, balanced, calm brain. People usually are like, "Ooh, no, I don't feel that way," or "I feel like brain fog." And these are not patients. These are coaching clients who come to me who want to work on health goals. And when they're working on health goals, they're finding there's an obstacle on either the way that they're thinking. They feel like they are like overwhelmed, stressed out. They're procrastinating. They're just not persistent. They're not able to keep with a program that they've chosen, or they're maybe overwhelmed and can't even pick any kind of program, a health program to follow. So when we look at this, what makes a strong brain, now let's look at what influences these areas of cognitive flexibility, reserve, resilience, neurogenesis, connectivity versus protection mode. And quite a few months ago, I interviewed Dr. Bredesen. So listen back to that, and he is a wealth of information. He wrote the book, The Ageless Brain, and also The End of Alzheimer's. Really amazing researcher and physician. So he summarized three drivers that actually influence the brain and will switch the brain from, he calls it, from connection mode to protection mode. We want it connected. Remember what explained about the strong brain. You want a strong connected brain. When it goes to protection mode, it's protected, it's not functioning fully. It's not maximizing on brain function. The brain is not working efficiently. So, what are the three drivers? What are the things that can switch your brain from connectivity to protection? So, he has summarized it in, you have to look at the energy of the brain, the energetics. You have to look at the inflammation in the brain and body, and these are not just the brain. We're talking brain body. And then the third area is toxicity. So with energetics, it's what is giving the brain energy and what is pulling away the energy. And there's certain biomarkers and certain things that we know that will, and I'm going to get into the building blocks of a stronger brain. But just it's easier if you look at, I call them like bubbles. There's a bubble here for energetics. So, what is really pulling your brain energy, or what is giving your brain energy? And a lot of times, many of these that I'll explain are the lifestyle healthy habits. Yes, that is what influences brain energetics. It also gets to the cellular, mitochondrial, and oxygen uptake. It's also that, but I'm going to give you a broad view of the building blocks. So they're tangible. So you know how to build a stronger brain. The inflammation, think of what causes inflammation, not just in the brain, but in the body. And you may have heard like sugar. Why are people saying you should detox from sugar? It's because it creates this inflammation in the brain and the body. So high glucose sugar, people have different uptake in glucose, and you may have heard of insulin resistance, and that's where people have a challenge in being able to manage excess sugar in the body. So they develop this insulin resistance. Inflammation. So inflammation can come from the body's inability to manage sugar. Inflammation can also happen when our body is fighting an infection. And it's a normal inflammation response that happens. But when it's a chronic inflammation and when it is affecting the brain and the body long term, that's when it influences the brain. And you can also look at factors for inflammation. It's the gut health, it's your oral health, in some cases. The third area is the toxicity. So think air pollution, microplastics, chemicals in the cleaning products, in what we surround ourselves with in the carpeting and mattresses. So toxicity. And you notice, or you may know a friend, or maybe it's yourself, who could be sensitive to certain things, allergies, toxicity in certain products, but you yourself or someone else may not have a problem at all. So it just depends. Our body can handle only so much toxicity load, and some people are more sensitive than others. Overall, though, we know that toxicity, like, we don't want to have air pollution, we don't want to have microplastics in our body and our brain, but it is happening, unfortunately. So looking at those three areas, it could be that you may have more of an energetics problem where that's influencing the brain. You may have more of an inflammation problem that's influencing the brain, or it could be the toxicity that's influencing the brain. Now let's get into what are the building blocks. Now, these are not in any, there's 10 of them that I have really that I talk to my clients about and my patients. They're building blocks for a stronger brain. I'm going to give you the 10. They're in no particular order. They're sort of randomly put together. But in the part 2 and part 3 of the upcoming episodes, I'm actually going to do a deep dive in some of them in the first in part 2 and some of them in part 3. So I'll explain the part 2 and part 3 in a moment. But here are the building blocks of a stronger brain. And you're not going to be surprised. You'll be like, oh, healthy habits. Yes. So we know that the building blocks, things that really influence the brain, and again, they influence the energetics, the inflammation, the toxicity, and that in turn will influence our cognitive flexibility, reserve, our connectivity. Is our brain calm and balanced? Is it showing neuroplasticity and neurogenesis? We want a really vibrant, stronger brain. And what we know is these areas will affect the brain and the building blocks. These are the building blocks. 1, sleep. 2, exercise. 3, nutrition and supplements. I put those together. 4, stress management. 5, social interaction with people. 6, challenging the brain. 7, this is an all-encompassing one. It's planning, time management, goals, trackers. 8, habits and routines. 9, mindset tools. 10, managing infection, mycotoxins, mold, managing your health. Let's just call it managing your health. And I want to put a little plug in here. I'm giving you ideas on how to build a stronger brain, but you need to be seeing a doctor to look at, is there underlying infection? Is there underlying mold exposure? Is there, do you have high blood pressure? Do you have high cholesterol? Do you have high sugar, high glucose? That has to be, you have to look at that because that can be an important factor in how your brain is functioning. Okay, so that's why that's number 10. That's one of the building blocks. So let's talk about the next 2 parts. I'll be doing a deep dive into 2 parts, I'm going to divide up these 10 areas, these building blocks. And the way I look at it, think about when they're building a big building, like 10-story building, maybe it's an office building. They start with the structure, with the beams, the framing, the ceiling, the floor, the elevator, the bones of the building. That's what we're going to talk about in part 2. Some of those building blocks that I shared with you are the structural principles, and they're structural building blocks that you need to have in order to do the other things, which is part 3. And these are the lifestyle healthy building blocks. Now, back to the analogy of the building a building, you have the structure, but what makes it unique is the type of decor, the wall color, the carpeting, the light fixtures. Those all make the structure or the building unique. Just like those healthy building blocks will make your brain unique and stronger. Okay. So I just came up with that analogy. Maybe that resonates with you, maybe not. But hey, make sure you come back for part two. In the meantime, I invite you to join my Jumpstart Your Health program. It's a digital program, so it's online, weekly group coaching and teaching. So I come on, teach my coaching clients there. Some people choose to have one-on-one coaching. You don't need to. It's a 3-month program. You'll get access to all the video modules that are really getting into deep dive into those building blocks for brain health. The other cool thing that I'm doing, I started in January, is every week I'm giving people a weekly schedule for their yoga, meditation, breath work, and yoga sculpt practice with the little light weights and bands and such. So it really is a great opportunity for you to jumpstart your health, get into something that's prioritizing not just your physical health, but your brain health, which is all in one. So you can find the link to join the Jumpstart Your Health in the link below, right in the show notes. And I will see you next week. Take care.